welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. This is Jessica. I am your host, and this is an episode I'm really excited to record because this is a bit of Syosset history. As we all know, Syosset is a town that has been the birthplace of many careers in the entertainment industry. And you can say that for many of them, many who we've interviewed ourselves, it started at the ground floor or below the ground floor of Syosset High School. And I have somebody here today who is looking to document that and bring the history of WKWZ to us. So why don't you tell us who you are, Jason, and about the project you're working on?
So I'm Jason Feldman, and I'm currently a sophomore in Syosset High School. And I'm working on a project, a documentary, documenting the long history of WKWZ, the high school's radio station. I've been going through all the old logs they've had where people have had to log, hey, we're doing a PSA, the wattage output is this. I've been going through yearbooks. I've been trying to dig up as much information as I can to really express the story of WKWZ and what it's made people into, and also how it's affected their lives, and along with the people who worked at WKWZ.
So tell us a little bit, first of all, about how this came about and your own history with WKWZ.
Well, it started with my father. He's a WKWZ alumni who graduated in, I think, 87. And before I was even in high school, when I was in middle school, I knew about the radio station. My dad was like, when we did the radio station, we were able to go and do this, we were able to do that. And it made me really excited about it. And once I got to the high school, the first thing I did, first day, I asked someone in the hallway, where's the radio station? They directed me the wrong way, but I got there eventually. And I immediately spoke to Pat and Maria, who were the faculty advisors. And I said, how do I join? First thing I said. And they gave me the whole process. And I was the first person to join the radio station after passing all the tests and whatever. First person to join my freshman year. And I've been doing a show every Friday from 2:30 to 5 o'clock, classic rock. But so then I already knew about all of this, and I enjoyed the radio station, especially when I joined. And I realized as my father would tell me stories about what they did and people people I spoke to about WKWZ, either they did it with him or they did it earlier or later, they would always tell me how awesome it was. But they would also train everybody. This is not exactly that, but like everyone would train people. So the station manager before would pick the next station manager and the next station manager, and they would train them on what to do. And I realized all the stories and the process of this is how we do things kind of got lost in all the years. So I decided to document all of it and tell the history of what it was and what it used to be and what it's going to be, what it's aiming towards.
So that is very, very cool. So kind of a quick overview. When did so this is the 50th anniversary of WKWZ. So what year exactly did we start in?
Well, we started testing August 24th, 1973. That was the first day of testing. But then the first official broadcast day, they tested for 8 days, then they left a break going into the school year because they tested during the summer of 73. So then they started actually broadcasting on September 17th, 1973.
So what are some of the things that you've been looking for specifically in making this documentary? Like how have you been able to track down guests? And have you found that process to be difficult, easy?
In the beginning, the process was a bit more difficult than it is now. Because originally, the first person I interviewed was Josh Rosenthal. I know you spoke to him, but he's also a close friend of my father. So that's how I kind of got into that. And I would interview my father and people who he knew. But then it turned into a whole thing of, you should talk to this person, you should talk to that person. And it would keep going and keep going. And now, like, I'm getting like 15 emails a day being like, hey, so and so recommended me to talk to you about WKWZ. I heard you're making a documentary. And I'm also now, well, recently I spoke with Dr. Durante and Mr. Steinberg, who are the principal and assistant principal in Syosset High School, and they're really on board with it. They're like, we'll do whatever, we'll get you whatever you need to make this happen. And like Dr. Durante, like he's been so good to, like, he's been so nice to me and really inspired me into making this more, because I'll tell you a quick story. He was giving me some of the giving me to borrow some of the old WKWZ archives, like the logs and other things. And he said to me, this is what made the radio station awesome, because everyone had a chance to do something and prove themselves." And then he handed me this thing. He handed me the stuff he was giving me, and that really inspired me, what he said, because it also reminded me of what people have told me about Jack DeMacy, how how he's inspired a lot of people. Like, one person said to me, one of my big regrets is not keeping in touch with Jack DeMacy. And that really showed how big of a part he played in some people's lives, especially people like Judd Apatow, Josh Rosenthal, Matt Grant. And it really shows that he cared. He wasn't just there to be there and get the paycheck like some teachers are. He's there because he cares about the kids and wants them to succeed.
And I think you will find people talking about Jack who even were not WKWZ alum. I myself was in his TV production class, and I have kept in touch with him. And I'm extremely grateful that I've kept in touch with him, because he really is just a very genuine guy. And his goal is to, if he sees that you're interested in a spark, it's to kind of help you figure out where to follow it. And I think that's one of the reasons why WKWZ really did take off the way it did. I remember, when I spoke to him and when I spoke to Judd Apatow and, all the other people, really, he really wanted WKWZ to be a student run radio station. It was not like a puppet radio station or anything. Really, if people came to him with ideas, he was so supportive of just letting it happen and seeing where it went. And I think just that support and the respect that, like, you could give a kid, a teenager, is really important, because that is kind of a tough age where you are starting to really come into your own and, independence, and you are exploring your capabilities. And when you are given something and then somebody really condescends to you or talks down to you, or makes like the radio station like a playpen, for lack of a better phrase, it's not going to really come out in the people who are running it, and it's not going to be part of the output. People are not going to be as into it. And that is absolutely not what WKWZ is. It really was. I know when I was there in the 90s, it was this living, breathing entity, and people who were involved with it were really, really involved. And, what they wanted was to put out a good station. So I think it's pretty great, first of all, that you're second generation, and that you're making this documentary itself.
Yeah, the secret of WKWZ, which I've come to realize, has been that it was a professional radio station run by high school kids, but nobody else knew it was run by high school kids. The rest of the world had no clue. The only people that knew were the people that were in it. And they would reach out to music companies, they'd reach out to record labels, they'd go to political events, they'd host concerts. And the bands they hosted had no clue they were high school kids. Neither did the record labels. Nobody knew. And that's what made it special because it's high school kids. You wouldn't expect a high school kid to be able to know how to fully function a radio station. Like people have told me when they've gone to college, they were like, "How do you know how to do this?" But they had 3 years of experience. And that made it special. And unlike any other radio station, because a radio station can say, "Hey, we're special because of this, we're special because of this." But that's kids who haven't even gotten a full high school education yet. So when you really think about it, you're surprised by it when you find out that it's high school kids.
And I think that really did help a lot of people. And again, that's a lot of it is with Jack's support. If somebody said they wanted to reach out to a record company, they wanted to go to a political event, there wasn't really any, no, you shouldn't do that. No, it was, encouraging, like, yeah, because why not? How are you going to build the skills you need unless you are supported to try these things? So far, this is just so listeners know, today is May 30th, 2024. So how long have you been working on this project and how many interviews have you been able to set up roughly?
So I've been working on it. Well, I've been working on this project really working on it for the past 2 months. But I've had the idea for a while. And I've had about a little over 30 interviews, and am still in contact with a lot of people who I've not yet interviewed. And it's really interesting to hear everyone's perspectives of what they experienced. And also, everyone now lives all over the country. So the span of WKWZ now, like some people live in California, people live in Texas, people live in New York, people live in Boston, people live in Chicago. And also there's always Judd Apatow, and Judd Apatow will always be the most famous person as of now that's come out of WKWZ. But there are many Judd Apatows, just they're all not as well known as him. Because there's Josh Rosenthal, who's now is very successful in the music industry. My father was very successful in the TV industry. Matt Grant is very successful in the news industry. Jake Assman now works for ESPN. So, I would say out of everyone who's gone to WKWZ, and Jack even said this to me, there are at least 20 Emmys won by people who've gone to WKWZ. And it shows how influential it's been. Because a lot of people without WKWZ, and they've said without WKWZ, they might be doing something else if they are in the media industry currently. So it really shows how much it affected people's lives. And also, I need to mention this person, Roy Dipple, was also very influential for
Roy
people.
Dipple, he was
Yep.
wonderful. He and Jack were like they were inseparable from what I recall in high school, the two of them.
Yeah, Roy, people have brought up that whenever people say to me, you need to talk to so and so, the most common names are Jack DeMacy and Roy Dipple. If it wasn't for them, the station would not be what it was. And if it wasn't for them, I probably would not be talking to you right now. Because they transformed the basement. I went down there today. It's an older, kind of weird, it's a basement. Like no one would think, hey, let me go into the basement and there's a radio station. And the fact that that radio station did what it did at the time it did it is crazy.
I agree. So first of all, I do want to go back and ask, because you mentioned something in the very beginning that you took the tests. What kind of tests are there for WKWZ?
I think there used to be a lot more. I'll be honest. I when I finished it, I was like, really, that's it? But So I had to take like a vocab kind of test, like to make sure I knew all the terms like back cell, front cell, and all that good stuff. But then I also had to do a practice radio show. So during my lunch period, I went into the radio station. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do the practice thing. And I literally just went on. They had a live stream online. So I went on to that, not on the actual radio, but I went on the live stream and they listened to me do a radio show. I got to choose the music I played, and that's that. That's all I really had to do. I was kind of impressed by that. Oh, I will say, before I took any of the tests, though, I did have to observe like two people's shows. Like I couldn't say anything on air, but I had to like just watch two people do their shows and take notes or whatever. But that's all I really had to do, which I was kind of surprised by, to be honest. And when I told my dad, he was also a bit surprised by, because like we had to do much more than that. We had to get licenses and all that, but we didn't really have to do that.
So the documentary making process, how has that been? Because obviously that's like a different beast than doing radio.
Yeah, it's very different. Number one, lots of video. On radio, you only use your voice. But I've come to realize, with my father guiding me, like he told me how it should be executed, not necessarily being like you have to have this and that or whatever, but gave me a general rundown. It's because he worked in that industry. But it's mostly just been me. And first off, through the interviews, I'm having everybody narrate the documentary. So I won't be in it as much. It'll mostly be everyone telling the stories how they experienced it, and that will drive the story. But it's been interesting to also learn about the process of making it. And I've also really liked learning about the station while doing so. So it's me doing something I enjoy while learning about something I want to learn about. So, in my opinion, that's the best way you can do it.
Most definitely. So is there anything that you've learned that really, really surprised you so far? Or do you want to save that for the documentary itself?
I'll save most of it, but there's one story I'll tell. Um, this is a good one, so don't worry. I didn't give you some lackluster story. Um, so basically, what happened was, I think it was in the late '80s, and I'm not gonna mention any names, but there was someone on the girls' varsity basketball team who got mad at something one of the sportscasters for WKWZ said. And what happened was, long story short, the girls' varsity basketball team challenged the WKWZ sports staff to a basketball game in the gym. And let's say when the date came, a lot of the school was there. And I'm not going to spoil how the story ends, but let's just say the WKWZ staff did well, did exceptional.
Very cool. That definitely sounds super, super fun. So yeah, what at what point would you say like how much longer would you say you are going to be filming for? And do you have a target date for releasing this project?
My target, like for when I should be done, is the end of the year. I'm not holding myself to that, but that's my goal. And I'm looking to start really editing like midway through the summer. That's when I feel I should start. I'll have everything transcribed, at least the interviews I've done so far, and I'm just gonna start editing and see where it leads me. And that's all the planning of when I'm really gonna start certain processes that I've done thus far.
Excellent. And would you say also, so I know that obviously you have an interest in radio. Are you interested in filmmaking as well? Like, is that something you've always been interested in, or did it sort of come about while you were coming up with the idea for this?
Well, first off, I've always felt the need wherever I am, like especially when I've gotten older. About when I was 10, I really started getting the feeling that I just need to make something, whether it be because I'm a musician, whether to be make music, whether to be make a video, whether to make a podcast, whatever. I've always felt the need to make something. And the first time that really came out was during the COVID, during like the prime time COVID, everyone stay home. My brother and I started a podcast where he would interview professional lacrosse players called Matt on Lax. And that was really where I started pursuing my interest in making stuff. And then I went to sleepaway camp. I would make music at sleepaway camp and really enjoyed that. But then I had the idea for this documentary. And I'm like, let's do it because I'm not making anything, so let's make something. And then I started making the documentary. And my dream job would be to work in TV. That's what I want to pursue. And I've always really enjoyed the making of TV and learning about how it's made. And I would say my father has some influence on that for the fact that he worked in that industry. And that's really my end goal for all of this.
Well, I'm really very much looking forward to this documentary.
Thank you.
I'm going to be reaching out again. I do hope to get to see it when you are done with it. And your motivation is just fabulous. So do you have an actual title for it yet?
Okay. I will tell you, you're the first person except my father who I've discussed this title with. And I will tell you for the world to know. The title of the documentary will be The Subterranean Penthouse. That will be the title.
That is a fabulous title. I love it.
Yes, that's the title of the documentary.
Whoa, good job. I love it.
Thank you.
Titles are always very difficult, but you nailed it. Amazing.
Well, to be honest, everyone, for at least from my dad's era and from the beginning, Fred Zada, when he was the original faculty advisor, from the beginning, they were calling it the Subterranean Penthouse. And in the beginning, like when they would turn on the air, it would say, at this time, WKWZ starts its broadcast day. And it would say, broadcasting live from Syosset's Subterranean Penthouse. So that's where I got the name from the name for the documentary.
Thank you so much, Jason. I expect to see some more great things from you. Once again, this was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast. Our guest today was
Jason Feldman.
And we are going to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.